Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the break, and as soon as our man on the TV gets ready.
Steven Spielberg ready back there yet?
Ready to go?
Good.
Thank you. All right, sir. Ball's in your court.
Thank you. My third and final witness this evening is Pete Chikalis, our professional engineer. Pete, can you please state your name and business address for the record?
Sure, my name is Petros Chikalis. First name is Petros. Last name is T as in Tom, S as in Sam, Oukalas. I am a professional civil engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I am employed by Mazer Consulting. My business address is 2000 Mid-Atlantic Drive, Mount Laurel, New Jersey.
And how are you affiliated with AT&T?
AT&T hires us to prepare their zoning and construction plans for their proposed and modification sites. So we do the plans that you see before you, and we also do their structural calculations when they have existing towers, and all sorts of other civil aspects for their installations.
And can you briefly describe to the board your educational background?
Sure. I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Drexel University. I have about 15 years of experience. I have a professional engineer's license in the Commonwealth. I also have about 10 other licenses throughout other states and the District of Columbia. I've also been in front of hundreds of boards like this.
And have you, in front of those boards, municipalities, have you been accepted as an expert in the field of telecommunications, site design, and civil engineering?
Yes.
Showing you what is marked.
You're moving him though, right? Mr. Kuche is an expert. Is there any question from the board?
Yeah.
No.
Sorry for the formality.
You are offering him as
Just want
a,
to be clear.
Yeah,
you're offering him as an expert, though, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
okay.
His CV is located at A12.
That is my
Yeah, we
CV.
have it, thank you.
Thank you.
That is a copy of my resume.
Sorry, I jumped the gun on you. I didn't know you were going to the resume. Thought you were going to the plans.
No, going to the resume and offering him up.
No, he's accepted as an expert. Fine, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. Pete, what has been your role with respect to this particular application?
From the beginning, SmartLink and AT&T hired me to go out to the site, do a site investigation, which in turn we use to prepare this set of plans that is before you currently.
Now, this plan varies from the plan that we filed with in 2013 slightly, is that correct?
Correct.
There were a couple revisions made that I made reference to earlier.
Yeah, we went from 130-foot top of pole and center line of antennas to 100-foot tops of everything on this pole.
And we also changed...
The antenna size from 8 and 6 foot to 4 foot to meet the requirements of the ordinance.
So, showing you what is marked as Exhibit A13. Can you identify that exhibit for the board?
Yes, that is the zoning, is the plan called zoning drawings, named Arcola. That is the plan that was prepared under my supervision.
And in your opinion, does that plan adequately and accurately depict what is being proposed here this evening?
That's correct.
Can you describe to the board what the plan shows, please?
Sure. The plan that you see here, which is in front of you, I also have a larger set here. I'm going to start on sheet Z2, which is the overall site plan of the subject parcel. It's a 6.5 acre parcel, and what AT&T is proposing to...
You want to use that?
Sure.
You have a,
He has one, I think.
And what AT&T is
be a lot
proposing...
better for the audience to see that way.
What AT&T is proposing to install is a 75 by 75 foot fence compound with a 100-foot steel monopole in the center. The compound, actually the monopole, is approximately, I think, 398 feet from the front property line, which is right off of Level Road, 400 feet from the rear, which I'm calling this the rear here, and 55 feet from the property line that abuts the park. Could you go to the next sheet, please? Z3? Z3 is going to be a blow-up of what our installation is going to look like. So we have a proposed gravel access drive coming from the existing drive that is at the site. It's a paved drive. And here is our 75 by 75 foot fence compound. The fence itself is going to be a chain link type, 7 foot tall with 1 foot barbed wire. We have landscaping, 2 rows of landscaping surrounding the entire site, and a 100 foot monopole in the middle. It's 37.5 feet from both fences. This fence right in the middle. AT&T's equipment will be located within this 11.5 foot by 20 foot equipment shelter. All of their equipment will be held within this two-hour fire rated structure, and we also have a standby generator just in case of emergencies. The antennas will be located at the top of this monopole. Can you go please to Z4? Z4 shows the elevation view of the monopole. The monopole is a tubular steel structure that is tapered from the bottom to the top. It's approximately, it has not been designed yet, but it's site-specific. It's approximately between 4 and 5 feet, depending on how we design it, at the bottom, to approximately 2 feet at the top. Top of our 4-foot antennas will be at the top of the monopole itself at 100 feet. We will not be going over 100 feet. The lines that power the antennas and give signal to the antennas, they'll run down the center of the monopole and along a cable tray. If you don't mind going back to the previous page. Sorry. Go along a cable tray, which is approximately 10 feet high, needs to have 7-foot clearance so a person can walk underneath it without hitting their head, from the shelter to the monopole itself. There's only 3 lines that go from here to here. And go back to Z4, please. This is what the antennas will look like in a plan view. There's going to be 3 sectors, 4 antennas facing this direction, 4 antennas facing this direction, 4 antennas facing this direction. It gives you 360 degrees of coverage. The shelter and the facility itself is an unmanned facility, does not require potable water, does not require any sort of sewer. There will be nobody there full time. It is only accessed via that access drive that I showed you, and there's actually a parking spot for the technician once every 4 to 6 weeks.
What kind of vehicle would they come out as in usually?
They typically come out in an SUV type vehicle, anywhere from, say, a Ford Escape type. They don't bring any, the only tools they really bring is like a laptop that they go into the shelter, do some diagnostics, make sure that everything's working right, do any sort of updates they need, and then head out. It is a remotely monitored site, as was said before. There are no alarms that go off, but no audible alarms, but there are signals sent back to the central monitoring station, which monitors all of AT&T's facilities. The generator itself only runs when there is an emergency, and by emergency I mean it loses power. If the site is without power for an extended period of time, when the site loses power, the generator will kick on. It is rated at 73 decibels at 23 feet, 7 meters. We are 55 feet away from the property line, so we'll be approximately 65 decibels at the property line, which is about 65 decibels is about my conversational voice right now. It will produce power for this site when there is no other power in the area. So if power goes out at your house, you have no TV, you have no cable, but your cell phone will still work. Which if you have to call someone or look on the news or something like that, it's a very useful tool. The generator itself, when not being used, it does cycle once a week for approximately 20 minutes during the afternoon hours, early morning, afternoon, not early, late morning, afternoon hours around 11 o'clock. So it's usually when everybody's at work. And again, the noise level at the closest property line, which abuts the park, will be about 65 decibels. Can I say anything?
Let's just talk briefly about security at the site, fencing and security of the shelter, if you could.
Sure. The fence, it will, as I said, it'll be 7 feet tall with a 1-foot barbed wire. It's going to have double access gates in the front, so if you had to pull in, get equipment in and out, you can do that. It will be locked at all times. So it does have a padlock on the fence. The equipment shelter itself is also locked at all times. Only AT&T personnel and contractors have the codes to it, and they change them very frequently now. So you might know it 1 week, and the next week you have to call them and see what the new code is. If you try to open the facility without putting in the code, it will sound an alarm back to the central monitoring station, which in that time they will do what they need to do. I guess call the police. But as far as security, they lock it up as tight as they can.
And what type of outdoor lighting, if any, is proposed in this type of facility?
There's no lighting proposed on the pole itself. There is a floodlight on the shelter that comes standard. It's for instances that when the technician has to go to the site at night, say there's an emergency at the site, and by emergency I mean an AT&T emergency, they have to go to the site to fix something right away. The technician can go and safely walk around the front and not have any tripping hazard, be able to go there, turn the light on with a timer on the inside of the shelter, and be able to do his job at night.
And Pete, can you talk for a little bit about the standards with regard to the construction and build-out of these types of towers?
Sure. The construction and build-out of these towers is governed by the Pennsylvania UCC, which incorporates the International Building Code 2009 version. That International Building Code calls out the TIA 222G, which is the Telecommunications Industry Association, basically Bible on how to construct and check and make sure that these things are structurally capable to support telecommunications equipment. In this area, the wind loading is a 90-mile-an-hour, 3-second gust. That meets the criteria of all those codes that I just told you. The facility itself will have a site-specific foundation designed for it. That foundation, it's necessary to do soil borings and get soil characteristics from, you know, the in-situation soil here, send it to a lab, we get our report, and we send it off to the monopole manufacturer to design a specific pole for that wind loading, the amount of carriers that we design it for, which in this case will most likely be 4, since there's really only 4 big telecommunication carriers anymore, and the wind loading, which I just specified.
And in terms of a certification of how this is built structurally, would AT&T be amenable to, per the township's ordinance, at the time of building permit, should we get approved submitting a structural certification for this tower?
Yeah, absolutely. You would need to submit the geotechnical report, the foundation report, structural report, and the construction drawings that we would prepare if we did get approval here tonight to get your building permit.
Now, I know structure safety is a big question most people have. In the unlikely event that the structure fails, how would it fail?
Well, these structures, again, are designed not to fail. They're designed to the same codes as skyscrapers are. So if this thing were to fail, the manufacturers typically design a weak point in the tower, which is typically about 1/3 from the bottom of the tower. I'm sorry, from the top of the tower. So in this case, it would be about 33 feet. And they don't just crack off and fall. They usually just bend in that location. I personally, I've been doing this 15 years, I've never seen that happen. I've never seen a monopole fail because of wind loading conditions, wind loading or ice loading conditions. There was a question earlier about cost to construct these sites.
I'll get to that.
Do you want to answer it now, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Typically, these sites, I'm not including the cost of plan preparation and going through the process that we're here tonight. They're not cheap. Something like this is a little bit less expensive. It's about $200,000 to build one of these sites. They can get up into the $500,000 range depending on what you're designing. You do a tree pole. Tree poles are expensive. You know, if you do, I'm doing a site in New Jersey right now. We're building a clock tower. That's $500,000 just for the clock tower, plus all the other equipment that we're doing. So, in this case, it's about $150,000 to $200,000 approximate range.
The reason why excuse me, the reason why I asked that question is I think you said in your original opening that the township could have made money if the tower would have been put someplace else. Is that correct?
Yeah, if it was on the property, the adjacent property parcel, the park, there would have been a lease with the township, and the township would have received rental revenue from Verizon, or AT&T, or whomever would co-locate on the pole.
You had me for a minute. So instead of the township getting the, excuse me, getting the income, the property owner will be getting the income.
That is correct. We did our very best to put it on township property, but we were unable.
Now, would a property owner get paid just for the initial installation, or will it be a monthly pay, or what would it be?
That's typically proprietary, but it's a monthly,
Monthly income?
correct.
Is it paid for the pole or each antenna, or how's it work?
Yeah, I don't,
You don't know?
We really
Okay,
don't
thank
know.
you.
Don't we have a copy of the lease?
Yeah, at least they are to me, but, okay.
Is he ready for questions?
You have any more for me?
actually, not yet.
Okay.
Pete, I'm showing you what has been marked as Exhibit A14. Can you identify that document for the board?
Yes, these are photo simulations that we prepared, my firm prepared, simulating what the monopole would look like in an as-built condition. What we did is we went out to the facility, this is back 2 years ago when the site first was initiated, and we flew a balloon. And actually, it was done in, last year. In August 7th last year, we flew a balloon. And what we did is we superimposed what the monopole would look like. Now, the balloon that you'll see is actually at 130 feet. We know the size of the balloon, we can scale it down, so we had to show the 100-foot monopole on there instead of the 130-foot level where the balloon's at. So, this plan here shows where our photos were taken from. The proposed monopoles here, we have 4 locations along here, the park, and on the other side here. Could you please go to the next page? Photo location 1, easy if I read this here. Photo location 1 is on the reserve drive between the cul-de-sac and Landis Mill Road. It's about 1,100 feet away. About down here at the bottom is where the balloon is. This is where the 100-foot monopole would look. This is what it would look like if we installed the monopole. Please go to the next page.
That's with leaves on the trees.
That's what leaves in the trees. We took this back in August. This is photo location 2, northeast corner of the parking lot inside the park. Photo balloon shown here.
Boston had a snowbank higher than that. Right?
Parking lot?
This is the parking lot inside the park. This is, and we put this in here so that you have an accurate depiction. We're not trying to hide what it will look like when it's installed. If we would like, if we wanted to do that, we would never put this in the report. So we want to show the board exactly what it's going to look like. So, 100-foot monopole.
Can't you build a clock tower there?
I don't know about that. So, this is the 100-foot monopole. Photo location 3 is at the intersection of South Lewis Road and Winthrop Road. You can't see it from here. Couldn't see the balloon. Wanted to just show a couple locations around. And photo location 4,
And the balloon was at 130.
130 feet. Photo location 4, also could not see it. That was on Landis Mill Road near the intersection of Reserve Drive and Landis Road. So we drove around without going on people's properties. Excuse me. We drove around without going on people's properties, staying on major roads, seeing where we could see the balloon. We were able to see it really in one location that wasn't on the park. We wanted to put the park on there also so we could at least show you what it would look like, or it'd be basically a worthless photo sim.
Now, I'm no psychic, but I've gotten the sense that the folks behind me aren't a big fan of what they've seen, and someone had mentioned, can this be stealthed in any way? We would be amenable to, in this particular instance, doing some type of stealthing as a tree pole, something that would blend in better with that line at 100 feet. It's not 130. It's much shorter and a little more conducive to blending in with the environment.
Keep it here for the time being. Keep it up here for the time being. They can ask the questions when you're done. Okay?
Sure. Okay.
Have you built this type of pole before?
Which type?
This monopole that you're proposing?
Hundreds.
Yes.
You're saying hundreds and he's saying no.
No, he said yes.
I said yes.
You shook his head no. Oh, your head was going the other direction.
Yes,
Yeah,
we've
but
designed.
yes, you
I've
have.
designed.
Yes, we have.
Oh,
Okay.
I've worked on over 1,000 sites.
So do
in-
you
in
have
this
a
area.
picture of one that's completed?
That picture there was taken, the one that was shown, can you go please back to photo location 2? That, we took an existing site, and we took that picture and superimposed we basically cropped out what the pole looks like on an existing site, and we plastered it onto there so you'd see what it would look like. So that is what a built monopole looks like.
Okay.
Pictures were taken in 2013.
14, sorry, that was my mistake, it was 14.
Picture take 2013.
Oh, you're correct, I know, I was right the first time, that it is 2013. It says 14
So the
down
trees
here.
could
I
have got
apologize.
higher, the trees could have got lower, the brush would have, right. So 2 years, a lot of things happened in 2 years.
Well, if anything, I guess the trees would have gotten taller, right?
I suppose.
Not really, we have windstorms around here. Is that it?
He's all yours for now.
George, you have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, for this monopole design, and I understand, thank you for explaining that in the design there might be a weak point.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever have guy wires on monopoles?
No.
For further stability? Is it not necessary? Explain that.
Sure.
I know you said structure. I was going to ask how thick is the concrete and everything, but you said that's site-specific.
Right.
But is there any other safety feature for hurricanes extended? I mean, 90, a wind gust of 90 miles per hour for a certain period, I mean, that sounds good. But again, because of the location of this specific site, what is, you in 15 years haven't seen one fall over, but that would be one of my safety concerns.
Okay.
As a parent.
I'll start with the first question.
So-
There are typically 3 types of structures that tower structures that we put these on. One's a self-support tower, which is the lattice tower we spoke about earlier. They look like a Pico
But you're
tower.
talking monopole,
Yes.
yeah, so,
That, I'm just going through and explaining like guy wires and stuff, so.
right.
A second type is a guy tower, which is sort of a lattice structure, but it's much, much smaller. It's only about 2 foot wide. They're usually very tall. They're the ones that have the guide
You see
wires on.
wires.
Yeah, you see
Okay,
wires on them.
I've seen wires, okay.
The wires are there for the lateral stability, because the tower itself can't support itself side to
Swing.
side.
Okay,
So the wires are there for that. This is a steel tube structure. It does not require any sort of guide wires. It is, again, a self-support tower, but a solid, well, not solid, but a tube steel structure which can support itself plus other carriers in the code-specified wind conditions.
okay. What bothers me, and I'm not a structural engineer, but when you have a platform and you have other things at the top, that's something the wind can catch.
Exactly.
So what is the bendability then? If you're not having guy wires, okay, fine, you got a weak spot, but that tells me it's going to bend, possibly going to bend at some point. Which direction?
Correct.
And
So what we
again, you
do
know,
is,
looking at playgrounds and those kinds of.
I understand. What we do is we have structural modeling programs that the industry uses. We take everything that you said. We have all the antennas. We have all the platforms. We have the size of the monopole itself, how thick the steel is, where the slip joints are at, how big the foundation is, how big the bolts are at the bottom, how big the welds are. Put all that in there. We put the code-specified loading. Now, the code-specified loading, I say 90 miles an hour, but I'm not explaining, I don't want to get too technical, but there are factors on those. So we have factored loading that is put on this monopole. We check that, and with our factors of safety, we see how much reserve these towers have. A tower like this, brand new, with only one carrier on it, would be way less than 50% capacity. And as you put, obviously, if there were co-locators, it would get closer and closer to 100, but that would be something that the future carriers, if there are any, would have to address. This will be designed for at least 4 carriers. Like we said, we have the top 4 carriers that we have here, and it will be designed for today's codes. The hurricane winds are actually built into the modeling program and built into the calculations that we do to get our wind pressures. So everything like that is taken into account. All that information is given to the monopole manufacturer, because this is not just coming off the shelf. We're giving them specifications to build it to a specific size, specific strength, specific capacity. So, and as I said, it's going to meet all the codes that it's regulated under.
Thank you.
Gil?
No, I'm good. Not at the moment, no.
I have a couple of questions, sir.
Sure.
You really went with security other than a moat around the place. You're talking about, did you have a chance to read our 143 code on what's?
Oh, that was a while ago.
On communications equipment, antennas and towers?
It was a while ago. Like I said, I did do this set almost 2 years
Did
ago.
you happen to read the one that says, an 8-foot-high security fence shall be required around the communications tower and the other equipment? The fence shall be landscaped to screen it from direct view.
We do have a 7-foot plus 1-foot barbed wire, which
Yeah,
is total.
that's what I'm getting at. It says 8-foot-high fence. It doesn't say any, let me finish.
Okay.
Doesn't say anything about barbed wire. Now, you're in an area where there's a school.
I think I can address this if I may. We will take out the barbed wire
Make an 8-foot fence.
and
that's
make an
fine.
8-foot fence.
Thank you.
No problem.
Now, my other question is, you're talking about monopoles.
Yes.
How is it a communication company can put a monopole on a property with one of those on top of it and have the antennas installed? We have a monopole at the corner of Germantown Pike and Grange Avenue. and it's a 100-foot pole, and the antennas are inside the pole.
Yeah, that is a stealth structure, well, a concealment structure. Flagpoles, the issue with flagpoles is they don't have the capacity that a standard pole would have. So you can only fit so much inside the flagpole. That's the type of installation that you're talking about. I do know what you're referring to.
All right, now you just made a statement here. I thought we were hearing for a pole for AT&T. You made a statement saying that there's going to be 4 carriers that may be involved in this.
No, I
Now,
said
let me
that-
finish. I'll let you talk, let me finish.
Okay.
Now, if this pole at the corner of Germantown Pike and Grange Avenue is 1 carrier, why isn't that suitable for you? Why do you have to have a tower with 12 antennas on it if it's strictly for AT&T? Why are you worried about 4 other companies? So to pay the $200,000?
No, I was just referring to the other carriers to show that it would be designed to support additional carriers if need be, so that we're not worried about structural capacity issues in the future. I'm not saying that AT&T is building this monopole for co-location purposes. Any questions about why we would want to go with this rather than a flagpole, I think the RF engineer would be better to address those. I'm here strictly on a civil portion, a structural portion of this plan.
I understand, but you originally came in and you said the application says AT&T. It doesn't say AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, whoever else there is, I don't know. I turn my cell phone off because I don't want to hear anybody talking to me.
We could design this just for 1 carrier if the board would like, so that no other carriers could go on it.
And it would be without the 12 antennas, and it would look like
No,
a
it's still,
flagpole?
it would still look exactly the same.
Thank you.
That was sort of along the lines that I was going to inquire. The array that's at the top of that monopole, is that because it's at the top of the tower, is that the proposed array for AT&T's repeaters, et cetera?
Yes, the 12 antennas.
Okay. And then someone said earlier that if another service went on there, it would be 10 foot below that?
Correct,
So there could be another array like that, 10 feet below that?
correct.
And how far will that go, do you know? I mean, you're the tower engineer, I recognize you're not the RF guy, but if there were 4 carriers, then a layperson like myself would look at it and say there'd be 4 different arrays that would be on that pole theoretically.
Correct.
When you've done this for AT&T in the past, is it always a threshold effort to get an array like, or a tower like this installed, as opposed to one that has a certain amount of housing, camouflage, or what have you?
Typically, yes.
And is it that changes, because we all see these in places, and the township has a couple of them, because they've had some of these issues in the past, where they're just flagpoles, or they're in-clock towers, or they're in areas that are not as visual. This is visual, of course, albeit in a certain area. So how would you propose to camouflage that?
This, honestly, the only thing I think we could do here is propose a tree pole. A flagpole in the back of the woods with all those trees around it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Doesn't-
What's a tree pole?
Tree pole is basically a monopole that's disguised to look like a tree. It's got branches on it. It's green. It's got the antennas hidden inside the branches, not inside the pole itself. The only thing is tower colors, brown or green, depending on what the specifications are of the board.
Squirrels live in the tower and stuff?
RF transparent squirrels, maybe. But it is a tree that is 100 feet tall when all the other trees are a little bit shorter.
I think I've seen those out of the corner of my eye on the turnpike and some
Yeah, if you see them on the
places.
turnpike, those are the older ones. They're not
not
very
good
aesthetically pleasing.
representation, yeah.
I call them the toilet brushes because that's what
Right,
they look like.
right, yeah, that's right.
They have much nicer ones nowadays, but
You don't
that-
have an image with you on that or anything?
I did not. I did not. We, as we said, we could, if that was a way the board would like to go, we could definitely propose a tree pole here.
What is the, and I recognize that this is all new at this point, but what would the additional cost be to do something like that?
Double.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Because you're going from a steel galvanized structure to a steel structure with fiberglass, manufactured branches that you have to construct bit by bit to make it look like a tree going up. It does cause like maintenance issues because it's obviously not as easy to climb. You can't get cranes in there if you have to get something in and out. You can't get equipment up and down as easily, but it may be more aesthetically pleasing. Maybe.
That's the carrier's issue.
It's a carrier's issue, yeah.
Is it just as efficient?
Yes. Yeah, it'll be designed to the same codes as what I stated previously. All the towers any tower that supports an antenna has to meet these codes. So if we take an antenna and we put it on a wood pole, say 40 feet in the air, down the street, you see them every once in a while, and they would be held to the same codes as a 100-foot pole. Has to meet the same wind requirements.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Nope. Not at the moment, no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have for this witness at the moment.
Great. Anything you'd like to add? He's your last witness, I guess, or?
He is my last witness, and I-
Sum it up for everybody, or?
Well, we got
Any
people-
questions?
I know, but I mean, waiting for him to do his part of his case.
Yes, very, very simply. I'll keep this brief for the board and the public. As you know, there is some history here. We did try to do our best to work with the township and the state to move 500 feet away. It would have been a little more visible as a light standard. However, that was not possible. Senator Rafferty was involved, DCNR was involved. It just was not feasible. That being said, we activated this application, as you saw, and heard a witness testify. Our search ring to cover this particular area, which you saw has a significant gap in coverage, is all zoned residential. There is nothing there by way of district for which we could go by right for conditional use, special exception. There is nothing within our ring or anywhere outside of our ring to meet our coverage objectives here. We lowered the height of the tower to comply with code. That is our minimum height requirement. We lessened the antenna length to meet the code. We are willing to stealth the tower in a way that would make it less obvious to the folks around. You've heard testimony that this site will comply with all appropriate building standards and does comply with FCC standards for human exposure. That being said, there's been a lot of due diligence, ladies and gentlemen, over the last couple of years on this site. We did not take this lightly. We did not barrel through and say, nope, we're not going to try on that park property, which is a very large property, but it's all excluded. And that is why we were here before you. We've exhausted all other options in this area. And we've done the best we can to comply with your ordinance. So we've taken 4 variances down to 2, and we are offering, obviously, to change the fence. There will be no barbed wire, be 8 foot, and we will do what we can to keep it stealth to something that would appeal to the board. But we have no other options here.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm finished.
Obviously, you understand the standard for the variance and the 5-part test.
Yes.
And I'm just grasping for what the hardship is. The hardship is that you can't otherwise utilize the property for the purpose?
No.
For this purpose?
No,
or-
that's typically not the hardship. Unfortunately for telecommunications, and I was going to have our radio frequency engineer talk about this during public comment or right after, there, and not to put words in Brock's mouth, but he can testify to this. However, it's not an issue, your typical hardship issue. It's an issue of technology. We can't pick and choose where these places go. We are bound by the technology. We are bound to work and build out the infrastructure of a network that has been in place for 20-some-odd years. We don't have that luxury. If we did, we wouldn't even be asking to be in a residential zone. There's just nothing else around. So the hardship is really created by the technology that all carriers use, not just AT&T.
And the essential character of the neighborhood, of course, that's another issue that I'm sure folks are going to be
Yes, and
concerned
I was going to have Mr. Chikalis hit those points. I was going to wait for the public to,
Okay.
because I figured those concerns would come up and we could hit those points at that time.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thanks. All right, ladies and gents, who wants to speak first?
Mike, who do you have on the list as first one?
Well, frankly, I alphabetize this, make it easier for whoever comes up, for me to find their sheet.
So you got somebody with a first initial of A, right?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
No, go in the order that you have, it's fine.
Okay, Mr. D. Benedetto?
No, you have to swear in, Mr. Benedetto.
Frank, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. I just have a comment.
Just state your name for the...
Frank D. Benedetto.
And the address-
D-I-B.
Address, Mr. Benedetto.
E-N-E-D-E-T-T-O. Okay.
Where do you live?
113 Level Road.
Shoot.
Okay. I've been a resident there
Gotta be
for almost
careful.
30 years. And the only comment is I tolerated a lot of things as far as the district justice next door, the football field across the way. And I just wanted Level Road to remain a neighborhood with homes, not towers. It's just, you know, I'm not sure why they even, I understand the technology part, but just in the neighborhood, it just, I'm not really for that.
Who's your carrier?
Verizon. Even if it was Verizon, I would state the same comment.
Do you have a landline?
Yep, can keep it.
Do you have any cell coverage problems in your area?
No.
You do get the emergency calls from Lower
Yep,
Providence
I get 'em all
Township,
the time.
9999999.
All the time. Every time there's something going on with anything, we get it every time.
Is that it?
Yeah, just a comment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you for your time. Are you interested in coming and joining on the zoning? My kind of guy, thank you.
Ms. Kunda?
Mrs. Clinton.
Do you swear or affirm that your testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. State your name for our illustrious court reporter.
My name is Mary Kunda, and I live at 182 Level Road. And I live on that
Just
airstrip
speak into the
that they
mic
talk
for the
about.
TV.
Yeah, Mrs. Kuna, could you
Could you
bring
speak into
that
the-
microphone down so you, yeah, that's better.
That's it.
Thanks.
Okay. I live at 182 Level Road on the airstrip that they're talking about, and there's another problem with the airstrip, other than for the frequency of the radio waves and everything, and that is it's in a direct flight path for the landing and takeoff of the strip. Also, I'd like to let you know that I have an AT&T phone, and I've had it for several years, and I've never had a problem. I'm in the white area that they demonstrate on the map.
Thank you,
That's it.
Mrs.
Anything else?
That's all.
Thank you.
Mr. Kunda?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I am.
And your name, please?
Stanley Kunda, 183 Level Road, Collegeville, PA.
Thank you, Mr. Kuna. It's your show.
Okay? Loud enough? I kind of object to what they're doing there. They said that the FAA has no control of what I'm doing as a private airport. However, the airport was licensed by the state. So state sort of controls me to make sure I do everything that's right. Now, when they put that tower up there and an aircraft comes in visiting me and has to abort for whatever reason and hit that tower, I just hope the people have enough money. So that is that condition. Now, they say they're using the steel structure. And that steel structure, the internal of it, condensation takes place. How do you make a determination whether that structure is sound or not? They have no way of doing it. There's a couple of tanks, water tanks, on the road across from where I live, and they're full of rust. I mean, completely rusted. They're still holding, but for how long, I don't know. So the biggest problem is, do they have enough money? And if you don't mind, can I ask a question of the audience?
You can ask whatever questions you want.
How many people afford the tower? How many people are against the tower? Need I say more? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kunda.
Robert Merrow.
Swear from the testimony you're about to give us the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do. I own a property at
Mr. Merrow.
State your name.
Robert Marrow. M-A-R-O. I own the property at 204 Level Road. I don't live there, but I do own the property. Two things. I have AT&T. I bought that property in 2012. I was there every single day rehabbing it. I never dropped one call. With regard to the variance, just like you said to him, Mr. Keith, it's only granted if a property owner would have a unique and unusual hardship created by the physical characteristics of the land. This is a hardship AT&T themselves might have, not for the land. The land is suitable for the zoning that it's in. There's no reason to give them the variance when it's an AT&T issue, and all the residents that are around there who have AT&T have no problems with the calls. So I would request that you guys deny it.
Thanks, Mr. Marlowe.
Margaret Martinez.
Swear from the testimony you're about to give us the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
State your name for the record, please.
My name is Margaret Martinez. I live at 3786 Lower Lewis Road, which is, really could be adjacent to Bill Unang's property, which is 182 level, if there wasn't a road in between us. So I'm straight across the trees from Mr. Unang's. And I'm very concerned that not only is this an improper use of R1 residential, but also that our property values are going to be devalued while someone collects $2,000 a month as a rental fee or as a lease fee. But for us, this is a real imposition, okay? When our property values decline, then who is going to help us in our neighborhood and in our locale? All right, because you know this thing, that picture that they took is from a far distance from that field, you know, from the corner of the field to see it. My house is 30 feet tall, okay? It's a 2-story colonial. This is 3 times the height. I mean, you really have to consider that this is not going to be just something that is sitting there. It's going to be something that is jutting out. And when people come to my house and when I go to sell it, they are not going to say, do you have good AT&T coverage? They're going to say, what's that thing? You know, that I don't want to live around here. Thank you.
May I ask you a question? Are there trees between you and this proposed tower?
Many, but none are 100 feet tall.
Thank you.
Raymond Martinez?
You got the drill, don't you?
Yep. Can I go? No.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give us the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Raymond Martinez, 3786 Lower Lewis Road, Collegeville. I just have a little bit, a statement, I guess, more than anything else. Let's just say you make the approval of this particular site. My concern would be is that if you permitted this particular variance, and if other carriers wanted to add on to this, would that make that tower even higher than it currently is? Once you permit this particular variance, then it's going to be very difficult for the zoning board to turn down any other additions to this particular proposal.
When you say additions, do you mean adding to the tower itself?
That is correct.
Well, let's ask the experts. Is that what would happen if you had to add people? You'd add a height to the tower?
Come down.
Can they add height to the tower?
Can you add height to a tower?
Well,
They have to ask for a
the
variance.
tower, but you would have to seek the variance to get it.
But is that typically what's done? Is it, do people add to the height to these towers?
It all depends on the carrier's network, yeah. I mean, we have 100 feet for our needs.
So if Verizon or someone else came in, they would request a variance to that, and since you permitted this variance, it would be very difficult for you to deny the next variance.
Well, not necessarily if you're adding to the pole height. That's a different story. I mean, if they're going to put a tower somewhere in an area where we've already granted an R1 variance, then I think your point is well taken. How do we, in essence, deny one if we've given the other?
That is correct.
But not necessarily for the height. The height's a
Okay.
different issue.
Okay. I hope you deny this. Thank you.
Jocelyn Latour?
I'm sorry.
Throw the mic at him.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I hate speaking in
Can you
public.
give
Oh,
her
I'm
your
sorry.
name and license number?
My name is Jocelyn Latour, and I live at 138 Level Road. M-A-T-O-U-R.
No one likes to speak in public, but it's
Hate it.
okay. You have lots of friends out there.
And we don't.
So you know this is important,
Yes,
because I hate this.
we're all harmless. Would you like to tell that board?
Our property is within your search ring. It's an area that I prefer to call my home, not your search ring. Our service is absolutely fine. Everyone who comes to visit us from out of state, out of town, their service is fine. I spent a lot of time at that field over the years. Service has never been a problem at the field or for anybody that I've ever seen over the field. I've heard the word need a lot from the gentleman tonight in their presentation, and I'm struggling to figure out who needs this tower other than AT&T, and potentially the resident who will be receiving revenue from having this tower on their property. I haven't heard anybody else say that they needed this. I don't believe they've had requests from residents within our community asking for this. It's their need. It's not our need. They referred to suitable location being Evansburg Park, that they tried to put it there so that we could get the revenue. The areas that they tried to put it are areas where children play. It is where sports teams practice. It's where, I believe, option number 3 was right where there's a playground. And the fact that they could deem those suitable is disturbing and almost laughable. It is laughable.
But we're not here for that one, so what's your point with that? That they didn't make a good faith effort to locate it somewhere
That
else?
they believe that those options are suitable, so obviously this one is as well, and I don't believe it is. If that's their definition of suitable. The health studies they cited, we can all go out and find health studies out on the internet that will say exactly the opposite of what they said, and we have. I think that the timing of this is also challenging for the residents at this end of Level Road at this point. We've been dealing with the bridge being out, and it's true. We've been dealing with the bridge being out for 1.5 years. I know they're making progress. I took a picture when I was so happy to see half of that was down, but we still have another 1.5 years to go. You don't have as many residents here tonight to talk about this because they're maxed out from being at board meetings until 11:30 for the past 3 nights because they're talking about closing Arrowhead and Audubon. People are tired right now of what's going on, especially at this end of the township.
But how's that AT&T's problem?
It's not AT&T's problem, but you know what? Their problem is not our problem. We don't have a gap in coverage. They seem to feel there's a gap in coverage, and I'm sorry for that, but it's not our problem. I wanted to say that when I moved into that property 13 years ago, we knew we were moving next to the field. Do I love all of the noise all the time at the field? No. Do I love the lights at the field that shine in my backyard? No. But I knew I was moving in next to the field. The field adds value to the community. It's a place where people gather. It's a place where children can play. It's a place where they grow, they learn, and they're safe. This does not add any value to our community.
You didn't move in next to a tower, is what you're saying.
No, but I'm saying what I moved into, I wasn't all going to be sunshine and rainbows. I knew that there were going to be challenges. I didn't move in next to a tower. I deal with the challenges that I'm presented by that football field, and I get it because it was there when I moved in. I accept it. I don't accept this. I accept the field because I believe that it adds value to the community. I believe that that's the purpose of what we're trying to do here tonight, is figure out if this is something that is worth giving an exception because it will add value to the community. And I don't believe this does, and I'm asking you to say no.
Fair enough.
Nice job.
Sal Pantano?
So, that's it. Swear from the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name for us, please.
Sal Pantano, 3805 Landis Mill Road, Collegeville. Looking at their display, we're on Landis Mill Road from their pictures. It is very nice to see that they went as far down the road as they could to take that picture. We're the third house in, so I would like to see a perspective from there. And looking at their maps, that, granted there's not any kind of references, but it seemed like most of their proposed coverage area that they're trying to enhance the coverage is the park. I don't see that many residents in that green spot. The deer.
They have cell phones now, don't they?
I'm telling you, my dog might have a cell phone when he's, walking there, but the coverage area doesn't seem to be big enough, to represent that they need this tower. And the other question I have is, on the tower, they're coming into the township's height requirements, but almost all of something of that height would have some sort of lightning rods. Why are they saying that this is not something needed? When you look at the pictures, it's a metal pole in the middle of nowhere. It has to attract something. Thank you.
Ashley Howard?
I got to ask you a question before you get sworn in. When they were talking about Arrowhead School, you start clapping. Was that for or against?
For.
For closing?
No, God, no. My name is Ashley Power, and I'm a new resident.
Swear, I have to swear you.
Sorry.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Ashley Power, and I'm a new resident to Lower Providence Township at 145 Level Road. This is not a suitable site for a monopole, tree pole, flagpole, or any pole. You yourselves, the engineer, said they look like toilet brushes. Why would you want that in our neighborhood? As you stated, this is 120 times less than regulation RF input, but it's 120 times more than what we want and bought into living in this community in Lower Providence Township. I have a few major concerns, most importantly for our children. This pole is going into an area just yards from a park, school that is used by hundreds. Studies show children are 3 times more likely to develop cancer. RF waves produced by this actually heat up body cell tissue. It is on the American Cancer website. By installing this tower, you are raising our RF levels. Is that not correct? Your RF expert, who again is not a doctor, has 14 years of experience, which is not enough to know the long-term health risks of this. Yet again, studies across the world show an increased risk. Why would you put our children at risk? Everything is available online. Safety. I know we talked about fencing and barbed wire and all that. Are there rungs on this tower to climb? Number 3, your reliable coverage graph shows green as the proposed area of coverage. You said you did your due diligence, yet that area is a stream and wooded park. To echo Sal's comment, do the local squirrels need coverage? We are not in California. It is not Redwood Tree Park. This will not mask this tower. We did not buy into this. Along the lines of due diligence, did AT&T know that the bridge will be out until late 2016? This seems like a lot of work and a lot of meetings for the board to go through for when they hit their lack of coverage standards and the pole comes down. But again, we do have a lot of squirrel and deer that need that tower. I beg you for the sake of our children, I have 3 under 6. Do not put this tower in. We are already at risk for losing a beloved school, yards from this pole, further losing home value. This is our American dream. We put everything into this. If we don't get good service, we'll switch carriers, along with everyone else. That's the only thing that's at risk. Tell them to get the cell out.
Dennis Zayak?
Zajac.
Zayak, I'm sorry.
That's all right, close enough.
Mr. Zajac, do you swear from the testimony you're about to give us the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Just a couple questions.
Just we want the formality of just your name and
Dennis
address.
Zajac, 32 Arrowhead Circle, Collegeville. Zajac. Question I have is, we talked about reducing the carriers on this pole to just AT&T. Should another carrier want to come in, are you obligated to give them a tower in that area also? As far as the frequencies on those towers, recently I got my ham license and I know a little bit about it. I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but exposure to these electromagnetic waves are measured in how often the tower operates. Obviously, this cell phone tower is going to be putting out almost a continuous emission of these electromagnetic waves, which could potentially be a health hazard to everybody. I wouldn't like to see it. I'm in the middle of that white area. I have no problem with the coverage, so I don't really see a need for a tower at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is that it, Mr. Mrzinski?
Yes, sir.
Another, raise your hand. You come on up. There's always one.
That's me. Linda Kobe.
That costs you extra.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
It is. Linda Kobe, K-O-B-I-E, 588 Barrington Road. I am a fringe user in that I don't get good coverage, but I'm not for the tower. I'm not for an exception to the R1 zone for the variance. If you have a problem with your coverage, you can at least request a microcell from your house from AT&T so you can get calls out of your house. You won't be able to get incoming calls, but your coverage for outgoing calls will be better. And that's no extra charge for our area because we do have problems getting calls out and in. But I'm just not for changing the R1 zone to allow this tower. But I do agree that if you decide you're going to insist that it be south, even though I don't think that would be attractive for our area, but maybe we'll get an osprey or a bald eagle to take up residence. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else who's been motivated to say anything? Okay, great. Mr. Kuche, do you have any witnesses you'd like to present in rebuttal of any of that?
Yes, I do, Mr. Solicitor. Thank you. Just a couple of things from my end first before I bring up RF and our engineer. The word suitable was used in different times in different contexts. I want to be very clear about the history of this. We chose this site, the subject site. Township requested that we move to the park. Township requested that we review with the senator and with DCNR. Township requested that we utilize a potential light standard, keeping the lights on, putting the antennas on top, in proximity to the children, understanding that we meet the FCC standards for permissible human exposure, and therefore there would be no issue. The only reason that that didn't happen was because of what I mentioned before, funding for that particular park and the fact that it's a state-owned park and the township merely rents it. So we didn't say the park was suitable and we should put this right next to your kids. This was a request by the township. And we went down and we did our due diligence to that effect. And at the end, we couldn't do it. And therefore, the township lifted their opposition, noting that this was less than 500 feet away from where the township was okay with us having a site at the park, at a playing field. So I just want to be clear on that. The other thing is, I understand people note we have AT&T, we have no problems. Last woman noted that there are problems, you could get a repeater, something of that nature. We don't make it a habit of being out at these meetings as a game or for fun, just to put towers up willy-nilly or needlessly. If we're here and AT&T needs to spend the money to do this, there's been testimony about how much this would cost and how much to stealth. We are willing to do that because we have an actual need and we have to provide service to our customers, customer residents, folks on the road. We need to do this. We don't just willy-nilly pick a spot. I would love, more than anything, to have a permitted zone in the immediate area or within miles. There is none. It's all residential. It's all park. We have no choices. We are trying to look for the least intrusive, tuck it into a tree line, reduce the height, stealth it as a tree. We are doing the best we can with what we have. If the township zoning map showed something differently, then we would try to go there where it was permitted in some form or fashion. As you saw on your own zoning map, we have nothing inside that search ring, nowhere even remotely close outside the search ring. Our hands are tied on those issues. A couple of things. I wanted to have our radio frequency engineer just come up. There were some health issues that were noted. I just want him to address. I know we can find anything we'd like on the internet, but these reports are sealed by experts. They are under oath. I wanted him to just very briefly, not to belabor points and waste everyone's time, but just address the few comments that were made.
Sure. So the main thing I just want to point out again is that the FCC sets these guidelines, and there is a consortium of experts that help the FCC set these guidelines. And if the calculations say that this facility will meet the guidelines, that's what we have to fall back on. It's also important to note that these facilities exist in very close proximity to residential areas everywhere across the country, and actually even far closer. If you go to almost any residential building down in Center City, there are antennas right on those buildings. There are also antennas right on schools. There are antennas right on hospitals. And not just onesie-twosies, hundreds, thousands. The FCC deems these facilities safe. And you can't believe everything that you read on the internet. It's the same as building codes. You have to rely on engineers, such as the one that did the study, to tell you that the calculations say that it meets the FCC standards.
But this is not your report, correct?
Nope.
This person is not here tonight, correct?
That's correct.
So we don't have any ability to cross-examine this person here tonight, do we?
No.
Are you attesting to what's referenced in this report as being true, correct, and accurate?
Based on my experience reviewing them and taking measurements on rooftops, I would agree with the analysis that was taken into account for that study.
So you're in essence verifying what Mr., what's his name? Peterson said.
Yes, that's
about
an industry practice that he's using, and he describes that in the report.
It's industry practice, but do you have firsthand knowledge that what he asserts here is accurate and correct in terms of the 120 times less than FCC limits?
Meaning, did I personally validate his calculations? No.
Do you have any experience validating any calculations associated with this?
Yes, I do. I've also taken measurements on probably 300 to 400 rooftops, taking...
When you say measurements, what measurements are you talking about? The height of the rooftop?
No, exposure with an actual probe. I can also tell you that, if you took that probe and put it up against your flat screen TV or your alarm clock, it'll be higher than the levels that you're looking at on that piece of paper. I would say if Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, who has AT&T antennas on it and Verizon does, is acceptable or okay with that, and the FCC is okay with it, then I'm okay with it.
So you're suggesting that that's the case, that Children's Hospital has those towers
No, they
with
do.
similar transmission devices there?
They do, on the rooftop in the city.
Other questions?
Yeah, I do. Not for this gentleman.
No. It's for the lawyer.
For the lawyer, yes, and I'm sorry, I have a million papers here and I can't find the one with your name on it.
Mr. Cruci.
Mr. Couchet?
Couchet, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you made any attempt to have talked to any of these neighbors before you came before us?
No.
Have you, and I might be opening a can of worms here, are you familiar with the park off of Yerkes Road,
No.
which is somewhat close to your circled area? Lesser density of housing along the Perkiomen Trail and a few other things. So you did not explore that area as a possibility for your tower?
I'm not the site acquisition consultant, I'm the attorney, so no, I did not.
But no one then within the group that's proposing this has looked at that
We'll
area?
ask Mr. Good that question, right? Mr. Good, you're the one who did the site analysis?
Yes, if you could show me where it was on a map, I can tell you what it was looked at.
Well, I don't know which page of your stuff
The
this is.
the Google Earth, Mike, if you can find it.
Mike, can you ring this one up?
Sure.
It was exhibit 4, wasn't it?
It's,
It's the one, 4.
The number that I found.
And if everyone could remember to talk into the microphone so we can pick it up for the television,
Yes.
please.
You can't hear it at home.
I was earlier. It got cooler in here, so.
Give her your pointer.
It's over near that 4008, isn't it, right there? Yeah.
Is that it right there? I think it is, yes. Isn't that Yerkes Road?
Yeah, it says Yerkes
Yes,
right
so
there.
right in there is a park that is owned by the township?
That area was too far outside the search ring to provide the coverage that we needed.
But as the crow flies, it really is not that far.
No, sir, just so I'm clear, what is this property
It's
exactly?
it's an open park.
It's a park?
nothing. Yes.
Is it what, I mean, we've run into issues with park properties. Is it
Well,
state park?
that was, no, it's a township.
Township.
It's township park.
Okay.
Was that ever suggested to you when you guys were talking?
But it's not in that ring.
It's not in this, in the
It's
range.
not in
but-
his ring, but as the crow flies,
But
it's
it's not
not that
terribly
far
off.
out of it.
The question is, I
It's in a white
presume
zone.
for the radio frequency expert, is there a way to put something in that area that's going to provide you the coverage that you're looking to achieve?
It is outside of the search ring, which would mean that it would be a compromise. The additional problem we have with that is why I'm holding this map here is it's the terrain map. And you can see as Yerkes traverses over to the west, which is, I believe, where the park was pointed out, towards the end of it there. Is that correct?
It's by the creek.
It doesn't
Right.
It doesn't cross over the creek.
No, but
it doesn't cross it, but
Used
the
to.
fact that it's near the creek is this blue area, which
Right.
would mean it's a low-lying area, which would
True.
mean we would have to create a much, much higher pole. So here we're proposing 100. If the elevation drop is 80 feet, we'd have to propose it roughly 180 feet. And that's if all things else were equal, which they're not, because it's a different location. If you remember, I spoke to the fact that we're kind of in the middle of a plateau here.
Right.
I think you are.
If we went down in that low-lying area at the end of Yerkes, which was right here actually, just east of where I have Route 29 labeled, we'd have to be high enough so that we can get over this same plateau area that we sit on today, and then over to the eastern side of it. So without doing an actual analysis, my estimation would be that, it would have to be much, much higher than we're talking about today. And if 100 feet is difficult for everyone to swallow, 200 feet would be pretty difficult.
Just so I'm clear while we're talking about this, where is that? Can someone point it out?
It's in the R3, I think.
Okay, so it's in another residential district.
Oh, yeah.
R3,
Oh.
So it's another
It's not
use
not as
variance.
dense, and it is a township-owned property. And you said before you tried to do something where the township would receive income from it?
Right, which was less than 500 feet away from the subject site.
I still would like to suggest that perhaps you take a ride down there and have a look at it.
How do they know? Going so high. This high. I am not.
What do you mean? Oh, this is in the game, yeah. It's not a game, right?
I mean, at the hearing, I'm told that, from an RF standpoint, it really wouldn't make,
Unless it was a much taller pole, like I'm stating without doing analysis, if that drop in ground elevation is 80 or 100 feet, the pole is going to have to make it up, and it's going to have to be a 200-foot pole. I don't see how that's more feasible or more attractive or more usable than what we're proposing today.
Adventure.
And that's if it provided the coverage, and it's a big if, because like I said, it would have to traverse that plateau that we're actually on.
are there not residents down in that area?
Very few. There's just one subdivision down there, and that's a pretty big parcel. And I know it's lower than what you're dealing with, because we are going down. But not being an engineer, I would like to suggest that you take a serious look at it.
Is it over here?
Yeah, it's over here.
But I haven't
Yeah,
seen
if you
anything
get
other than the
down.
purple stuff.
Well, yeah, this is the
Wouldn't
creek,
the
it's right in
park-
here, the park's
Wouldn't the
right
park
here.
have a green thing?
No, but not, this is a zoning map, so it's not
We
gonna
have
show
the
it
same
green.
issues with residents. We'll have
Yeah,
different group of
right.
residents show up here, that's all.
So we want 130 feet, so if we do 200 feet tall.
I still think they should go over by
You're
the
still gonna have residents upset down there.
Visitation Road, here's Moyer Road. I mean, that's a perfect spot, even though it's not the ring, but,
As they said, it's close to the prison too.
yeah. Yeah, but at least they'll push their area out more, because this is where they have the dead zone here. Stoughton and Winthrop and all that. This is where they have the,
Right, the biggest dead zone.
We would absolutely entertain reviewing that property and putting together propagation plans, see what height we would need to try to match the coverage, what we're asking for, if it can be done at all. We're willing to do that.
Good, thank you for that.
So how are you going to handle that then with respect to this hearing?
I would imagine we'd have to continue. Also, in that regard, if we're continuing, and there is an issue and the board's pleasure, would like to see Mr. Peterson here, who authored the EME report, we'd be happy to provide Mr. Peterson at the next hearing, so you can cross-examine him as you wish.
Well, I think that the residents have a fear of the electromagnetic and radio frequency issues. So, I mean, certainly it would make sense, and that they would have the opportunity, if they wanted to ask questions about that.
Do we have an address, or is there a park name?
Michael can get that for you.
Yeah, we can get your parcel number.
Okay.
Any other questions while we're here?
There were a couple other issues that were brought up by the residents that I just wanted our PE to talk about very briefly.
There was a resident that brought up something about condensation and rusting. I know what he's talking about, but that's typically with a water tank, because when the water tank, when it gets hot, condensation
Well, why don't you
forms.
tell us what he is talking about? Because I'm not sure I understand what it is.
That's what I was going for. When you have a water tank, sun hits it during the summer, condensation forms on the outside of the water tank. It'll drip down the sides. And if that water tank is not painted, or if, say, the paint's chipped off, it'll start to rust. Our poles, the one that we're proposing, is a galvanized pole. It is hot dip galvanized. It's not painted. It does not rust. The only way that it would rust is if you chipped off the galvanization, which is not easy to do. Will not be any condensation because there is no water inside the monopole.
Other questions, Mr. Kuche, of this witness?
No, we'll finish up with the next hearing.
Thank you. So what we're doing then is, with everyone's agreement, that we're going to continue this then? Are we going to continue it for 1 month? Is that the idea?
I think that's more than enough time.
And of course, in accordance with the MPC, you're all good with that based upon the previous continuance request?
Yes, we are.
So you folks have agreed to that. Do the residents have any objections or questions about that? Yes, sir, back on the right. Come on up. Question, or are you going to testify, or are you just going to ask a question, or
If
what?
we're going to continue, I have a question maybe they could bring to the next meeting.
You have a question for them, you want an
Yeah.
answer to, yeah.
My name is Scott Weber, W-E-B-E-R. I live at 3778 Lewis Road in Collegeville. I've heard a lot of talk about need here tonight. In fact, last 10 minutes, I heard the word 5 times. If we're going to continue, I would love to see, if there is such a need, there must be a lot of complaints about coverage. I would love to see some evidence of those complaints, and maybe they could bring it to the next meeting about what kind of complaints they've received, how many over the course of the several years that this has been talked about. That's all I have.
Fair question.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Weber.
And there was another gentleman in the back, I believe. Come on up.
You're flying too low, Chip. You have somebody behind you.
Okay, Tom. What we do for the kids, of course, at the school, we have Aviation Day once a year for them. Now, we get aircraft, we get pilots from all around the countryside, more or less, coming in there and giving them a show. Last year, we had parachutists dropping in on the kids and the teachers. They all loved what we performed for them. And the gentleman that talked about galvanized and lasting forever, it doesn't do it. I had roofing galvanized. I had to put paint on top of it to keep it like it was. So it's not a sure thing. Plus, the condensation inside that tube, unless they got it perfectly airtight, condensation takes place. I know I had aircraft that has to be inspected every 2 years because of condensation. So that's not a sure thing either. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marlowe?
Robert Marrow again. I understand the continuance aspect of it, but they haven't satisfied the variance burden. It's on the homeowner to show that undue hardship. Yes, there's an undue hardship for AT&T, but it's clear that the homeowner himself has not established that. I don't even understand why we have to continue this. The board should very easily be able to vote on this right now because there's no hardship, so no variance should be given. Can we address that?
We will ultimately. We're always looking for alternatives so that a solution can be found.
But you're making the residents keep coming back when clearly they haven't established a need for a
Well, that may
variance.
be in your opinion that they haven't. They believe that they have. We have to sort that out. I don't know what the board's tenor or feeling is on that. We haven't had that vote. But we're trying to accommodate everybody's interest because clearly if misinformation is the worst thing that can occur, and if we can provide more information that's going to offset some of the misinformation or misunderstanding, that's a good thing. It may result in the same result. I don't know.
But am I correct in the fact that it's the homeowner who has to establish that there's a need for a variance?
It's the owner has to establish, there's a 5-part test, and that's true. They have to establish, but his point is that it's not so much the topography or the nature of the lot, it's the nature of the technology. When you get into tower cases, it's a lot different than the normal variance. Normal variance would be...
He's not the homeowner.
No, but he has the right to be because he has the lease, the
No.
long-term lease. That gives him the right.
Under the law, it does, and I respectfully disagree.
Mr.
But I think it's kind of clear.
Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. We're going to break, and we're going to go into exec session to find out whether or not we're going to give a continuance, okay?
All right.
So bear with us for another 5-10 minutes.
I appreciate it.
Just letting you know.
Somebody in the back.
In the back, somebody had something? You're going to ask a question, or you're going to testify, or make a
Yes, I
statement?
can testify.
Swear, do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name and
My name's Paul Zabrowski, CEB, ROWSKI. I live at 6012 Indian Woods Lane. I just want to say that I can't see this tower from my house. I can't see it yet. What I just heard is now we're going to look to start to put this tower on wheels, push it from one neighborhood, and we're going to try and squeeze it in to another neighborhood, which means those neighbors are going to be up here in another month listening to the same thing. They're going to be now looking at possibly a 180-foot tower versus a 100-foot tower. I know I can't see the tower from my house, but I know what it feels like. My neighbor put up a ham radio antenna in his backyard. It's 30 feet tall, okay? Every day I come out my house, I see it. It's in my backyard, okay? These people here, they don't want to see it from their house. They don't want to have to explain when people come over, hey, what's that? Oh, it's a tower, okay? AT&T, big business, okay? These gentlemen are hired by AT&T to do a job. They're here doing an expert job on what they do. I got no doubt that they're going to build this tower the right way. Everything's going to work perfect. And you know what? The bean counter at AT&T, he's going to be like, we got this area covered now. It's not that they don't have coverage. They don't have the coverage they want, okay? There is coverage there. So my whole point is it's going to be a sparsely covered area by AT&T, okay?
don't let them put in the tower in our neighborhood, okay? In our township, my township, okay? I went through the whole thing years ago with seeing the Limerick towers because the trees didn't grow, okay? I look out the front of my house and I see the back of pharmaceuticals, okay, which is fine. Trees grow, it's great. But putting a tower in the middle of an R1 district is just wrong, okay? Because once you do that, you open the door for somebody else's tower, okay? AT&T won't let them on their tower. Hey, I need one just down the road, okay? God forbid they close Arrowhead. What comes of that lot? Hey, how about a Wawa gas station? Because once that bridge is fixed, people are going to shoot down level road hop in a Wawa, get a gas station because we changed it from a school to now commercial, okay? That's what we don't want. That's what nobody wants. So I'm against any kind of tower. So that's all.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
One short question. Does AT&T already lease the land from 182 Level Road?
There's an agreement in place.
There's an agreement in place to lease. But isn't it the burden of the owner of the property to get the variance?
That's been assigned to them under the lease. That's their right to do as a result of what the lease says.
But the lease isn't in play yet.
It is assigned.
The lease is already
It's conditioned
underway.
upon getting the zoning relief that they're looking for. They have a lease
okay.
that says it's conditioned finally upon getting what they're looking for.
Okay.
We have in our packet a letter from the landowner giving them permission to go forward with this.
So they have an equitable right to pursue it under the law. So they do have standing. It's a good question, but they do have standing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
The board is going to recess to
Yes.
discuss the possibility of the...
There's been a request for a continuance. The question is whether they're going to grant it.
Yes, we're going to go and take a break.
So give them 10 minutes and...
Yeah, before you do that, we just want full disclosure here. And
Sure.
The proper picture.
So I think one of the reasons why the continuance was being discussed was for me to go back and do a analysis of that Yerkes location. We did just pull up USGS maps to figure out what the ground elevation difference would be. And once we got out of the floodplain, which we had to move up a little bit from down by the
Creek.
river, we're at 140 feet difference. So all things being equal, we'd have to build a 240-foot pole at that location. So that's...
Which sounds like it's not
not
something
feasible.
that you normally would do.
No, because remember, we're moving out of the optimum location. We're moving to an area where we already have some coverage, and now we're going to put up a 240-foot
So
pole.
maybe we don't want to do the continuance at all.
I'm just offering that up as information for you to take into account.
Yeah, if it makes the board feel better to have that analysis, we just wanted you to have all the information.
Appreciate
If you wanted to see
that.
Mr. Peterson and cross-examine him, so be it. We're amenable to that.
All right, give us 10 minutes, we'll be back. 4:15. 4:25. Bring the meeting under order.
Where's our typer lady?
Oh,
Where's the TV guy?
See if I can find her.
Probably out having his.
Hey, Dino De Laurentiis, are we ready over there, or what?
he's all...
Good.
Can we thank the
Good morning.
residents
Good
for
morning.
coming out? Or don't we do that?
Sure.
All right, we're ready to bring the meeting under order.
All right, the board met in executive session. Appreciated the additional information that was provided before we went out in the executive session. It doesn't appear as though a study of the Yerkes property makes a whole lot of practical sense. So with that, the question is, do you still want to do a continuance? We don't necessarily require it at this point. We were trying to help by looking at that, but I think the board's ready to go to the ultimate question. So if you don't need a continuance to do that study, then that's what we would do.
Yeah, we don't need a continuance. I just wanted to wrap up with Mr. Chikalis.
Right, understood, okay. So then what the board's pleasure is that we will take it under advisement, look at all of the information that you provided, all of the commentary from the audience, and we'll put it in our little bag of tricks, mix it up, and come up with a decision. The decision would be announced at the next public meeting, which would be the fourth Thursday of March. I'm not sure exactly the date, but
March 26th.
Runs the same in March of disaster.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock here. That's the pleasure of the board at this point. Questions?
I just wanted to ask my engineer my last 5 or 6 questions and call it a day.
Okay.
For the record, Mr. Chikalis is testifying finally. Pete, generally speaking, in your opinion, would the proposed use negatively impact the public health, safety, or welfare of the community?
No.
And does the proposed use impact municipal services or have any impact on traffic?
No.
Does the proposed use affect or alter the character of the neighborhood?
Will not, no.
I'm sorry, what was that?
No.
You can't.
Will the proposed use substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent properties?
No.
Do you believe that the addition of the proposed telecommunications facility is a suitable and appropriate use given the circumstances that there are no other allowable districts in this area?
I do.
Will the proposed use serve the best interest of the township, the convenience of the community, and public welfare by making wireless communications for AT&T services available to the residents of the community?
Yes.
And finally, will the proposed facility be designed in accordance with all applicable safety and industry standards and will not endanger the safety of persons or property?
Correct. Yes.
Thank you very much.
But before you go, how do you know all these things? You're a professional engineer that builds towers. How do you know about the health and safety of the neighborhood or the community?
We design the sites. We take all these factors into account when we're designing the sites. So as we said, we design it to code. There is no health and safety issues with, if you go by what the FCC says, there are no health and safety issues. So we design it to stay where it's at.
But this is an R1 zone, it's a residential zone. You install towers in residential zones elsewhere?
Yes, we have.
And have you taken into consideration the health and safety issues when you design and build these towers in those residential districts? And as a result of your expertise, you're not an appraiser, correct?
I am not, no.
So when you say it wouldn't have an material impact upon the home values or the value of the community, how do you know that?
Well, I don't think that was what he represented.
Well, I think one of the questions you said was it would alter the nature of the
character
character
of the neighborhood, not valuation.
Okay.
That's only for a valuation expert.
Okay. So you're not
I am not
opining about the value, property values, et cetera, as a result?
No.
Do you know in your experience if a cell tower is placed next to a residential property, it impacts the value of the property? Do you know?
I don't think
I've heard testimony, but I can't say for sure. I'm not an expert. I have heard testimony that it does not. I guess that's
You've heard testimony.
But I've heard that's
Right.
hearsay. I've heard testimony that it does not.
All right.
I can't say it doesn't.
No, that's why I asked you if you knew. Any other questions, folks?
You want to ask me that question?
I think it would have been nice if you would have had everything to us before this meeting started. Now, I have to go home and digest this for 30 days.
My apologies. I was not aware that that was.
Yeah, I don't know that the rules necessarily provide it, but that's Mr. Borai's preference.
I understand that, I wasn't aware of that.
Right. You will next time you come before the board.
I will send it in weeks in advance.
Great, thanks.
Everything we had to work with was 2013.
Does anybody have in the audience, we appreciate everybody coming out tonight, does anybody have anything else they want to add? We're in this for full disclosure.
Here's a new face.
Come on up.
Mike Zvertnik, 137.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give us the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir. Zvertnik, Z as in zebra, A, V as in Victor, E-R-T-N-I-K. I just have a question in regards to, you guys have been saying that the FCC codes, when was the last time the FCC codes were, I guess, when were they put in place? Are they, reviewed often, or?
There are many FCC codes. Do you mean for?
For the towers. I went online for the towers and saw a date of 1996 as when it was established.
Telecommunications Act of 1996. Do you mean for the structure itself?
The appropriate levels, like when you talked about 120, whatever that metric
Times
was.
less.
Emission levels.
Okay, for health safety.
Correct.
Human exposure.
Yeah, I believe they meet annually to review the standards.
So that's updated annually? Because what I saw was
it needs to be
96.
updated.
Okay. So it's still acceptable, because I get concerned about, everything could go to codes, but codes change after a certain period of time, and if it hasn't been reviewed for 20 years now, then, we could be applying to old codes, but,
What I can tell you, the calculations are based on what is supposed to be used today. So what the FCC tells a medical doctor or a professional engineer, what they should be using today to calculate and analyze emissions.
And just for the pleasure of the board, the concerns is, I have a son at Arrowhead, have a 4-year-old that will be at Arrowhead. I totally get and appreciate the Children's Hospital having these towers, but, and I've also read that short-term, studies, kind of inconclusive. Well, there are some things that say that they're okay. I'm more concerned about the long-term studies and knowing that the technology in the grand scheme of things has only been out for, 30 or 40 years, or 30 years or so, 20 years. I know I got my first cell phone in, 15 years ago.
I'm more concerned about this.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's what I'm concerned about.
And that's why my phone's back there. But I also get concerned about, I don't have a tower right now that's within that many miles.
Sure.
Or more importantly, right next to my son's school. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One question. What happens in the event that South Antano? What happens in the
Excuse me, can you step up to the microphone, because we can't, it's not going to be able to hear.
Not only that, the camera's on, so you can smile and look good.
What happens in the event when the current property owner decides, I want to move? What happens to the tower, and what becomes of this?
It's in the lease,
property?
I suspect, and if it's not, then the tower people are going to want to maintain that, so they're going to deal with the new owner one way or the other. It would go with the land from that perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience. Thank you for your kindness. No rocks were thrown. We're still looking for 2 people as apprentices.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
I'll call for a vote.
Yeah,
Mrs. Cooley?
I seconded.
Vote, all vote.
Mrs. Hagerty?
Aye.
Yes.
Ready to adjourn.
I made the motion.
All right, you got a 4-zip, Deb.
Oh.